Thanks, Southern Cali. So I'm Ace from Delta 2 Alpha Design. Some of you may know. It's my man
Shadow, 52 VTK. Howdy, people.
Exactly. So we got a bunch of big stuff going on. We'll go through and we'll be talking about the Minster, which we got coming out. It's a knife that we kind of teamed up to design. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff going on, both from a function standpoint. We're working with
AccuStrike
to get the trainer done. So it's going to be it's a real cool project we've had in the works for a minute, keeping it close to our vest. And we're even going to be doing some live penetration tests over on
Bob over here.
Yeah, or El Bob Arena, where brevity isn't your thing. So we'll go through and we'll do the testing on that stuff and start talking the knife kind of in a couple minutes. We'll just start talking about how we got hooked up.
An interesting story. Huh? It's an interesting story.
So Shadow and I are kind of the odd couple. I'm a bit of a hayseed and he is
city boy from Brooklyn.
Not. So I wound up coming across a documentary years back. I mean, I'm thinking 2014, something like that, called Breaking the Glass by the brother Daniel Marks, where it talked about 52 blocks. And I couldn't tell based on, my exposure, whether this was something that was kind of put on or kind of what was going on, whether it was made up of whole cloth. We've seen that happen where some guys are like, oh, this is the art of my people. And it's like, yeah, well, that just looks a lot like all the Arnies that you've done, right? So kind of going through and trying to figure out, is this for real? So anytime I'd come across a brother out of the Northeast, I would ask, I'd get at them and I'd just be like, hey, man, have you ever heard of 52 blocks? And the big thing that I got as an answer was kind of, some of my cousins in the city, they'll have a slap box or something like that, but it's just kind of like it's stupid or it's junk, or it's like, yeah, that's just something someone made up. And kind of, or this was better, that was better, but no one that had any kind of exposure. And then I think the group might have been like Stay Bladed or something like that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And this is going back. And I saw you didn't even post something, you had responded to a post. And your name on Facebook at the time, I think, was Kage Akuma.
Yeah, Kage Akuma, that's right.
Right? So I just shot the brother a message. I was like, hey man, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah, whatever. I was like, you ever heard of 52 blocks? And you're like, man, I was growing up, everyone knew 52.
Yeah. And
so we just kind of started rapping like that. So for those of you, we'll kind of pick that story up, but let's just get into what 52 blocks is for those of you that don't know.
So 52 blocks at its heart, right, is basically a counteroffensive system. Its origins are debatable, right? But if we get into what became 52 blocks, it's basically the coming together of different prison fighting systems, right? You had the Comstock Shuffle, Woodburn Shuffle, Orign Shuffle, Four Corners, and so on and such, different Stato, right? Jailhouse Rock. All of these things were different ways that brothers had to fight in the prison system. And according to Minister Ali, who is one of my teachers, right, he told me that I think it was in 1963 in HDM, him, a guy named Onions, Karate Rob, Jamel, China Church, and a couple other dudes were all there. And each of these individuals had a proficiency with one or more of those other prison fighting styles. And they would come out every day, right? They were in the 6th building, as a matter of fact, on Rikers Island. And they would come out every day and they would fight, right? Like boxing. And to see who had the better thing. And as they went over time, they started putting stuff together. Like, you did this, I like the way that worked against this, and so on and such, right? One of the main things he always told me was that 52 blocks was made to beat the boxer, right?
Why?
All right. So when I was a kid in Brooklyn, there was a boxing gym on every corner. You throw a quarter in any direction, you hit a boxing gym, right? Boxing was big. And a lot of the guys in the prison system who were into stuff that, a lot of other guys didn't agree with, were proficient at boxing.
He's talking about Booty Bandits.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, right? So, there was an era in prison called the fight or fuck era, right? And that's self-explanatory. If you couldn't fight, you was doing the other thing, right? So if you wanted to avoid the other thing from happening, you had to be a good boxer, right? But the problem with that is that if we're both boxers, you can pretty much predict based on the way that I'm standing and how my body's moving, where my attacks may come and how my defense may work. So 52 blocks was intended to attack the boxer from angles that he wasn't accustomed to protecting and defend against the boxer in ways that he wasn't accustomed to attacking, right? And this took him all out of this game, right? So from there, it started to grow, right? And become what the system is now.
So we can just backtrack a couple minutes here. You had mentioned, there's the Woodburn Shuffle,
Woodburn Shuffle.
There's Woodburn Shuffle, there's Jailhouse Rock, there's 50 Comstock Shuffle, right? So were there really big differences between those, or like just like one or two things? Like was it as different? Like, I mean, you look at different styles of kung fu. You look at like Wing Chun versus a boxing to the foot, and they're a completely different species from each other.
So one of the things that differentiated them was footwork and a lot of time hand placement and how you launch your attacks, right? For example, Comstock pretty much is a Philly shell, right? A stylized Philly shell. So you'd be standing, let's face this way first, you'd be standing here like this, right? Boom. So if the guy is, you're fighting, boom, and he feeds a punch, right? Boom. I'm rolling off here. But now we're in boxing, I would counter with the straight right. Here, I'm countering with this back fist. Right now I can either counter here or bring the hand back, right? I can monitor this and then hit here, right? See, so that's how the Comstock was. And it's that W, because when I do it, boom, I'm stepping off on this angle to get him more offline, right? If I hit, or I come here, if I come here, I step back on this angle right here, I'm pulling him here, boom, I line that shot up, right? So that would be the Comstock. But now 4 corners, everything was tight. 4 corners come from wall fight, right? So we're going to pretend that the back of this chair is a wall. So I can't move. So I got to be here. So now I'm fighting, and as the blocks, the punches are coming in, right? Boom, boom, I'm here, right? You see? So I'm in this tight space, and I got to defend from here, right? And I'm also using the wall. So if he punches, I slip, he just punched the wall, right? When he hits that wall, I hit him with an uppercut. I hit him with a body shot, right? So you see distinct difference. One, I'm drawing him in, using the wall, and if I had an actual wall, you kind of use the wall like ropes to bounce off and to power your shots. You don't do that with Comstock. So here, so then you also have like with if you get into like Woodburn Shuffle, that's where you just hear this motion, right? So we going and he's punching. I'm here, right? I'm constantly moving, boom, and my counters are coming off, bang, right? See?
So if you show them that, you said that was the Woodburn, right?
Yeah.
So that last move, if you look at it from the front, what's interesting about that is it has similarities to your wave hands like clouds that you see in Kung Fu, right? So as far as shutting this down, and it creates this idea that there's an opening and it's kind of constantly the deflection. It's really, really neat. And so why is it, we'll just have a seat.
Another thing.
Yes, sir.
Another thing, right, would be, so when I was talking about defending in the way the boxer wasn't accustomed to. So we're going to go boxing. If we're boxing, he punches, boom, I'm defending. Boxer knows that. So if he did that, I'm going to punch, and then the hook to the body, boom, and then hook to the body, bam, I'm done. He can predict that. But if we're here, he throws that punch, boom. Now I just busted his knuckle, right? He's not accustomed to that. He's going to get a shot. And as he's reacting off that, boom, I'm hitting, right? And I'm hitting again. See, totally different thing from boxing. So, boom. So that's one of the differences between the systems and how you could differentiate between them, right? So again, you had these brothers came together, start. I like the way this works. I like the way that works, right? Those odd attacks, like with Stato, you was attacked like you would punch the collarbone, hit head, punch the arms to get wear the dude down. Basically, war of attrition, right? So all of that came together into this one system, right? Oh man, so 52 blocks was born.
Well, and so one of the things that's interesting is like there's been, I mean, there's an article out there. There's a couple articles. One of them's written by a guy who wrote really well, which is super funny. In which like there's 52 questions for 52 blocks. There's like guys basically said, well, this just sounds made up a whole cloth. Which I'm come back to my original statement. I was trying to find out like, well, who has actual exposure with this, right? And I mean, we see the same type of thing said about Systema and blah blah blah, right? So one of the big issues is the murky history of it, right? And I mean, 52 blocks was really just an oral trend. Was an oral oral history, right? And so when we start going through and looking at like, well, I mean, like show us the grandmasters, right? Show us the grandmasters. Well, where is Cowboy? Where is Onions? Where is Minister? Right?
Well,
where are the Harlem Six?
The reality is a lot of those brothers never made it out of the prison system, right? Like, unfortunately, and that's the big thing for me, right? Because there are individuals who profess to be, masters or whatever of the system, but never had to use the system to defend their lives, right? You had these brothers, man, were legends in the prison system. They was using this stuff against armed opponents, unarmed opponents, multiple opponents, and they never really got their due, right? Nobody talks about it. But a powerful, right, Cowboy, powerful, he's home, right? But he's an old timer, man, and a lot of the old timers not really trying to be in front of the camera like that, right? In point of fact, 52 VTK, right? Ace is largely responsible for me coming up with the idea, but Powerful was the one who, and when we was in Shawanga Correctional Facility, he said one time, he was like, yo, if you guys are still doing the same 52 that I was doing when I was young, y'all not making any progress. Y'all letting the system stagnate, right? Mm-hmm. So I took that as him saying, progress the system, right? Because the reality of the thing is that when MNSTR and them was doing it, the boxer was the big dog on the yard, right? The boxer was the biggest threat. Now, fighting has changed, right? They got MMA and more people are doing different types of martial arts and all that stuff. So you have to progress. You have to evolve the system in order to address the threats, right? That's how warfare is. Warfare is about the evolution to address the threats to the present at the time, right? So the threats to the present now weren't as present in abundance back then. So if the system stayed the way it was, it wouldn't be relevant, right? Because if you can only beat the boxer, then you're not really beating anybody anymore, right? So VTK is that process, that evolution of what 52 old school was.
So when we first started chopping it up, right, one of the big questions I had was, okay, well, like, first of all, what is this? And 52 blocks, like, I can throw the blocks up, but how do you tell the difference between someone who actually knows what they're doing and what they don't? And what does it look like? And so I'm fond of saying, I don't need to play the trumpet to know you're not Miles Davis, right? And so one of the big things is looking at the quality of a guy's movement, right? So the guy that flows pretty well, keeps a pretty low profile with the 50 blocks is Giant from the Bartenders Bar Stars, right? But so just so people can kind of see what those flows and those transitions look like, do you mind going through and actually just flow through, just kind of like a basic flow for, I don't know, 15?
Basic flow, right? I'll start it off slow. So this is We call this the 4 moons, right? Boom, 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 boom. Right, just right here. Boom.
So, if you don't know what that is, it looks, right? So the uninitiated, people say a lot of things. They're like, oh yeah, that looks flashy, but like, is it effective? Other people, right, they'll say, well, that looks fucking stupid. What's the point, right? It's just another fella trying to look fancy.
Right.
And so it's like, every single one of those moves, I mean, part of the reason I'm here is because Shadow and I are getting ready to do a seminar, right? We'll give it a low-key plug. We got something going on in just outside of Philly in the spring we're working on. So every single one of those movements is for a purpose, right? So like when you come across with the skull and bones, right? So skull and bones come across. Skull and bones is a cover, right? Right? But that, right, depending on how that skull and bones is done, it's also strike, right? And so, and when it comes through and fires out, right, that can be firing out to check and kind of press, right, to monitor. It can be going through and coming back with a hammer fist. It can be moving behind that and moving to a better position. Well, you're safe. Every single one of those blocks, as I've started to understand them, all of them are close range strikes at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So if the guy just said, oh well, I'm just gonna put hard pressure on him at the same time. Well, it's like, yeah, you're kind of running into a fair amount of corners and points, right? So that is an exercise. Well, what's the point in being able to flow like that besides just looking flashy?
All right. So first I'm gonna answer the question. Let me give an example. You never, right? So it's not realistic to think that a person is just gonna throw one punch and stop, right? You don't know that. And particularly,
not if they know anything about fighting.
Exactly, right?
Punches and bunches.
I was just about to say that.
Right.
Boxes, punches,
right.
and punches.
Straight ones and crooked ones.
So now, if I have to close, if we didn't start off in each other's face, I have to close that distance, right? So if we think of it like a firefight, right? If I'm in a firefight, I want to find cover as I'm getting closer to the guy, right? So I need cover to close the distance between me and him, so that I can be effective. Because Ace's arms are longer than mine, right? Like, stand up. So, make a fist, right? Yeah, I got nothing, right? So me trying to fight him from out here, I'm doing him a favor. So I need to close the distance. So boom, as I'm moving, I'm covering as I'm closing the distance, right? I'm getting closer. Now I can hit him, right? And as I'm closing, think of it as like a porcupine, right? Boom, this is here. So he hits, he runs into my forearm, any of this, that's going to be a bad day. Boom, here, boom, boom, right? Boom, boom. All of that matters, right? If this is stacked to deck, he shoots that punch, boom, right? Coming right over that. I can follow that, because he's still fighting, he still got another hand, so I hit, boom, I come in here, open up, bam, bam, my skull and bones, right? So I'm going from a strike to a block to a strike. I tell my students at the end of every strike is a block, at the end of every block is a strike, right? So I fire, I cover, I fire, I cover, I fire, I cover, right? So, and that's the purpose for you to get in the habit of doing that.
We've been doing a bunch of training across and sharing notes and stuff like that. And I mean, I've gone through and done a little bit of stuff. And so going through and looking at if you don't know how to enter, right? Like if you don't have the footwork to enter and you can't get in range, it doesn't matter, right? Once you're there, you need to have the firepower. And everyone's like, oh yeah, like I got footwork, I can throw hands, I got covers, cool. But what a lot of people kind of neglect, and I mean that the 52 VTK does kind of get into is if you don't have your exit, your exfiltration, right? If you don't have that sorted out, you're going to get tagged on the way out, right? So kind of like as an example that like the Mexicans, right, in the boxing gyms, when they go through and they throw their, I'll just do this stuff so it's easier, right? So they'll go through and they'll throw their pop, right? Right, so jab, cross, hook, and then they'll pivot out and then exit behind that jab, right? So whether it's exiting that double jab, right, or just kind of exit out, right? And so with you, right, because I mean, it's important to understand the context that 52 Jailhouse rock comes from. I guess we should probably talk about the differences between those, right? Is that all of this is happening in a compressed space. So when we're talking about, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of people who've been following this. What are the approximate dimensions of a cell? Like, are we looking at 6 feet by 10 feet, 6 feet by 12 feet? Like, what kind of space are we talking about?
About 6 by 12, maybe.
Okay, and what's the floor space though? Like after you take the bunks out?
You're not taking the bunks out.
No. Like so, like if we're 6 feet,
right,
and then we have the bunks, how much room after the bunks?
After the bunk.
Like, are we looking at 3-4 feet or
not even? Right, because so you got the bunk here, you got some locker here. You gotta keep in mind the bunk is almost the length of the cell, almost, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It stops short of the wall and the bars. You got a locker over here. In some jails, you also have a desk in your cell, right? And then you have the toilet, you got the sink. So you might have 2 feet in between, like a floor space to work in.
So like best case scenario, we're looking at 2 guys going at it in like in 3 feet by 5 feet floor space.
Best case, yeah. Right?
All right, so it's important to understand, like the example I gave the Mexicans in the Mexican boxing pivoting out and work behind that jab, that's not an option.
No.
Right? And so we start kind of getting into why is it that happens, right? So we need to be able to get in there, do the work, right? And that's great, right? So we have the ability to do the work, ability to get in there, but if you can't safely exit, I mean, what do you have? And then, I mean, especially when you start going through and looking at, I mean, it's a full spectrum of violence, right? Like weapons are going to be a thing. So there's a few kind of terms that get tossed around kind of interchangeably, right? And so there's a little bit kind of misconceptions out there, and we should probably clear them up. So we have 52 or 52 blocks. We have Comstock, right? We have Jailhouse rock. Now, just kind of some stuff that's out there. Some people are like, oh well, you know, like, right, Jailhouse rock was what the Peckerwoods and the Boneheads were doing, right? That was like a skinhead thing. Where like this is what these guys are doing. So just to like make this give some kind of credibility. How many years did you spend behind bars up top?
24 straight, and then I did another year, so a total of 25. Right.
So when he's talking about like what this was a lifestyle for 25 years, right? All right, we'll maybe do another kind of thing. Like, it's hard to pick it up on camera, but like he's covered in the scars of knife fights, right? So when the brother talks about like this is the reality of a knife fight, right? This is the reality of a weapons-based altercation in close range. It's not waxing philosophical, right? Like this is how they went down. This is what did not work at all, and this is what worked, right? So just to kind of qualify all of these statements, right? You were there with the guys that never came home. You were there with Mother Dear. You were there with these guys.
Not Mother Dear. Mother Dear died before I came through. Yeah.
Okay, so but you were there with the bulk of these guys, right?
Yeah.
Z Black and all.
Z Black, yeah, I knew Z Black personally.
Which is. It is a different Z Black than we're seeing on Instagram doing amazing fitness stuff.
Yeah, no, that's not.
But like, go and check that Z Black out too, because that cat's wild. So when we talk about those different names, right? Like I said, we've heard people say, oh, you know, 50, right? They just call it 52 or the Jailhouse Rock or stuff like that. Was there a system that was more kind of, you know, this is what the skinheads do? That Peckerwoods and Boneheads are skinheads.
So for by and large, right, that skinhead and AV thing wasn't really big in New York State, right? To be perfectly honest, you only had a few white dudes of note, like Patty Irish, Bobby Fingers, Keefy Hart, both Patty Irishes, because there was an older guy and a younger guy, right? And like I said, Keefy Hart and Bobby Fingers and a few other dudes who was known for putting it in, right? So, but outside of them, and Patty Irish, the older one, had trained with Minister, right? And Patty Irish, the younger one, had trained with Frosty, right? So both of them boys had a wicked knuckle check, right? And Bobby Fingers was known really for putting that work in with the knife, right? And Keefy Hart had a little knuckle check. I'm not sure who he trained with, right? But outside of them, I didn't know a whole bunch of white dudes that had anything, right?
So when we get to those names, right? Like when we talk about like Jailhouse Rock, was that a term that was even used kind of in New York? Or was that kind of like a term somewhere else that someone else called?
Nah, that was a New York term, right? But Jailhouse Rock was a very specific thing, right? See, the thing is, so 52 is its own thing, but think about it like this, right? Jeet Kune Do, right? Bruce Lee studied a bunch of different things and came up with Jeet Kune Do, right? So 52 is a bunch of different jailhouse, prison systems, prison arts, fighting arts.
Sure.
Boom. We're gonna take this from this one, this one, this one, right? Like you were saying about the confined space, right? So you have to maximize the space in the cell, right? Two primary modes of footwork with 52 is a V, right, and a W, right? The W is for closing distance, right? The V is we're in the cell, I can't move anywhere, right? So now, right? Boom. So if we're in the cell, this is the rock from 52 from Jailhouse Rock, right? Boom. Once I start moving, right? Boom. I'm hitting. Right? Boom. So I'm moving, and if he's punching, right? Boom. See, I'm over here, right? I can get that hit off, right? Boom. I come back, boom. See, and now I'm over here. So I'm maximizing this space. I'm not moving out of this space, right? But I put my head on the outside of this shoulder, and I know I'm safe from this hand, right? If he shoots a hook, I can get up under that, right? Boom. Same thing on this side, right? And I still have my hands, and I'm still doing my blocks. So I'm not really trying to duck, because again, we're in a cell, and we're going to simulate, right? I duck, he rushes forward, boom. I'm fucked. I'm pinned between the sink or whatever. So instead, right, I'm doing my thing, boom, he shoots the hook, instead of boom, I'm here, right? Bam, I can hit, bam, I can hit, right? Makes more sense, right? So that Jailhouse Rock is that, right? Boom, and I'm using that, I'm still rocking, right? Boom, still the same rock, but now just add that V footwork to that, right? Boom, and that's really all it is.
So we wind up having all those fakes and everything kind of built into that. So is there a distinction between 52 and Jailhouse Rock?
Yeah, because if somebody's saying I do Jailhouse Rock, then they just talk about that, right? It's more like but it's more like a Philly shell type thing, right? Boom, I'm here, bang, 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 right? But also with the, he might punch and I carry, boom, grab his leg, pull, right? When I pull here, boom, I hit him with the hook like this. Stuff like that, because it's still dirty fighting, right? 52 has Jailhouse Rock in it. So a lot of old timers in the system, they refer to 52 as 52, they call it Jailhouse, but not Jailhouse Rock, right? See?
So but where did the rock come from? Did it just kind of worked its way into the etymology?
No. There's just Jailhouse Rock was its own thing.
So there's Jailhouse and there's Jailhouse Rock.
Right.
Okay.
See? So if you spoke to like old man Cha-Cha, God bless him, right? And you asked him about the 52, he's saying no such thing as 52 Jailhouse, right? Boom. But it was 52 blocks, right? That term 52 blocks largely came from a deck of cards.
I'd like to clear this up. Is there 52 blocks in the system?
Nah,
right? There is no 52 blocks.
Nah.
Sorry, you were saying with the deck of cards.
So
where that comes
from the deck of cards, right? The deck of cards was like a big thing for dudes because one, it was used for all different types of training, push-ups, right? You play cards, you put cards on the floor, you do the number of push-ups on the card till you went through the whole deck, right? You might, each suit might be a different exercise, right? You work out like that. Then there was a thing dudes used to do where two ways to do this. I drew a card let's say it's a 10. I mean, you get to take 10 punches at me. I got to try to block all 10 punches, right? The other thing was dudes would throw the cards in the air, they hit the floor, boom. This is at 52 pickup. I got to try to pick the cards up while defending punches from you, and it might be you and somebody else. So I'm trying not to get hit while I'm picking the cards across the floor, right? Boom. So after that whole 52 thing came from, but none of the old timers that I know, like they acknowledge the fact that Jailhouse and 52 were pretty much the same, but not Jailhouse Rock. Jailhouse Rock, like I said, is its own thing, right? And I know that that's like splitting hairs right there, but it is what it is.
Okay. So just backtrack a little bit. When I first got in touch with you, one of the questions I asked after I kind of got the skinny on what it was after chopped it up for a while was like, okay. And my favorite question to ask is, what sucks about what you do, right? So, right, where's 52 caught sleeping, right? What's the kind of the downsides, right? The kind of issues with 52 and kind of where it's just not current, right? What sucks about it? So we kind of talked about that and like, well, and that's where we got onto this kind of VTK journey. So what was lacking with 52 blocks as you learned it, and how has that been updated?
The major thing that was lacking was a formalized curriculum, right? The reality was this curriculum there was no curriculum, right? It was just all over the place. It was the type of thing we might come out to the yard or go to the gym, and I'd be like, yo, let me show you something, right? And I show you a block or whatever, boom, 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 and you practice that. And I might see you 2 weeks later and be like, yo, remember that thing I showed you? Let me see it. All right, now I'm going to show you this, right? And there was no rhyme or reason to it. It's just whatever I felt like showing you that day is what you got that day, and we might not get back to it for however long, right? So that was a big problem. There was no curriculum. There were no set drills. Like 52 is heavily boxing based, right? And you can do a lot with that, right? But there's some limitations as well, right? Like it's hard to practice like it's a skull and bones or cool white guy block with somebody and targeting the fist without hurting the fist if it's just boxing. But I can take like the Pak style drill from Wing Chun or the Uber drill from Kali and use those drills and train 52 a lot more effectively because it provides a safe space, right? Everything is controlled, right? Boom. So that was another thing, the lack of coherent drills to sharpen up the skill set, right? To develop the timing and so on and such. And then none of these brothers, like, and I'm in no way, I have the utmost respect for all of the people that preceded me in the system, so this is in no way trying to take a shot at them, right? But a lot of them like a lot of guys didn't graduate high school, right? So they maybe didn't have the capacity to teach the system, right? To put it into a format where it was more teachable. Right?
Well, you see that with guys that did graduate high school, right? There's guys out there that are amazing fighters, and they can't coach with a good goddamn.
That's true.
And there's people out there that are like Freddie Roach, can like not even a noteworthy boxer, but objectively one of the best coaches to ever be involved, right? Customato had a record that was non-existent, and he gave us Mike Tyson.
Right, very true, very true. So there's that, right?
So you said that the curriculum was lacking, and then we also saw that, right, and there's no way to kind of effectively drill. So we've kind of brought that together, and it's like, okay, well, here's the order of operations as to what needs to be learned first.
Right.
Right. And where else did you feel, or do you feel that 52 as it was taught to you in kind of the original form, where it's just it wasn't current anymore. It was first time, was cutting edge, but needed some updating.
So with regards to like, all right, so I also do Wing Chun and Kali, right? Mm-hmm. There were like the leg checks and stomps and stuff like that from Wing Chun make a huge difference, right? Because it helps you put the individual, take them out of their comfort zone a lot faster, right? And 52 didn't necessarily have that. It had something similar, but not to that effect. And a lot of the times that stuff was done like it's a happy accident type situation, right? And even with the kicks, as far as I know, right, 52 didn't have any kicks in it, right? And VTK doesn't have a whole bunch of kicks in it, right?
So what about a guy like Karate Rob? Was it
Okay.
that Karate Rob he did his 52 and added some kicks, or it had kicks, or kind of how did that wind up working?
All right, so this is the thing, right? So karate, all right, so you have to understand that at that time, karate is what was known, right? So anything that wasn't boxing to those brothers was karate. Right?
Yeah,
So,
fucking Karate Rob there.
yeah, you think what I'm saying? So now,
The fucking karate from China.
is according to how it's coming together, Karate Rob had been a student of Moses Powell, right? Who we know was a princess.
For those of you that don't know, Moses Powell's a bad man.
Yeah,
like 80s bad. He was
yeah.
like bad.
And Moses Powell had been a student of Grandmaster Visitation, Professor Visitation, right? Who was a Filipino martial artist, right? So this is why I suspect, right, that you find some of the stuff in 52 blocks looks like Palantukin, like, it may have come from the Filipino martial art area because of that influence, right? There are certain moves inside 52 blocks that came from that Moses Powell school, right?
Well, even shuffling the deck has similarities to Dikadina, right? Chain hands,
Yeah.
right? That kind of like that movement where it's right in there, and you see it kind of as a distraction of the flash, just kind of
Even the fan in the windmill, that's Sinawali, right?
Yeah.
Boom.
yeah,
You see what
right? Wave hands like clouds, Sinawali, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm not really familiar with Tai Chi like that, but I know Sinawali, you can boom. And it's the same concept, right? And so you right, so if something works, it works. Whatever the country, wherever the people come from, people usually come to the same conclusion eventually, right? Boom. However, I firmly believe that comes from Karate Rob's influence because I know that Minister and them were boxing, right? So that stuff right there, and Stato had its things. Each one of those other systems had their thing. But even if you look at the Comstock is, like I said, a stylized Philly chef, right? So these other things came from somewhere. That influence came from somewhere. Where I suspect it coming from.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions about 52 or anything like that so far? We'll just give you a couple minutes, see if you do. And then if there's anything that you want to cover. If not, we can move on to...
So I do want to say something.
Yeah.
Right? So now this guy, right? The reason I said this guy is largely responsible for VTK, right? So at one point, right, I was dealing with this guy, right? And he wanted me to represent his system and trying to be a good guy, right? Because he had been the guy that taught my colleague instructor. I put him in touch with Ace, trying to get him a deal because Ace the H2 Sierra had just come out,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
right? And I'm like, all right, cool. These dudes could do something together and make some money, right? The guy tried to pimp me out, right? He was like, all kind of crazy stuff, right? Long story short story bearable. Ace met the man, got around and watched him move for a little bit, like, yo, look, you don't need to associate yourself with that dude, whatever. You should do your own thing. I haven't seen anybody move like you. You've got something different, and do something with that, right? So that was the first spark, right? Well, the second spark. Powerful was the first spark, right? And then when I was like, yo, I have no idea how to put together a curriculum, he said, all right, if I was going to jail in 90 days and you had to prepare me, what would you teach me? Boom. And the curriculum started coming together. So this guy right here, he's been there from the beginning. Big ups to this guy. My book. Come on, do better than that.
Your hands are so hard. Yeah, so it's one of those things where, I mean, when you grow up around it and it's just like it's normal, it's hard to, right? And it's just like there's tons of things about, that environment, whether it was like how you grew up. You grew up, I mean, Brooklyn and Harlem, right? These are different countries for most people, right? Like even people that are from New York. I mean, if you didn't grow up there, it's different, right? Like if you grew up in Brooklyn or Harlem, another guy grew up in Connecticut, right, in like Torrington, right? You're not that far apart, but you might as well be on the other side of the planet, right? Your realities are very different.
Right.
And then, I mean, obviously going into the gladiator pit for 24, 25 years, right? So all of these things just become normal. And then you don't really know that you have anything special until you're like, someone else points out, you're like, look, we get some.
Yeah.
Let's see if we got any questions here. I totally wound up losing that. Okay, so I wound up resetting the phone. I didn't want to get in there. Harlem and BK were nuts during the 80s. Yeah. So they were nuts during the 80s.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you kind of growing up in that New Jack City era, weren't you?
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't seen the movie New Jack City with Wesley Snipes, like, it's a good show, but like crazy times, right?
Crazy time.
There's a lot of people that wound up looking at the roof of the church a little bit early, right?
Yeah, I like that. I never even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no questions, fans, and y'all are awesome. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit. If you have any questions about the 52 or anything like that, and I mean we could literally go for hours on this. Ask them. We're gonna go through and kind of show you the Minster. If you don't mind, I'll just kind of go through and get her going on this.
So you want to get the backstory, or you want to show it first?
We'll go through and we'll get the backstory. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go through and adjust this camera so we can see a little bit better. Bring that closer. Bear with us here. Just move in here for me. Yeah. Okay. Got that all lined up. So this is the Minster. It's a knife that we kind of teamed up on. Shadow's a very strong influence on it. And we also teamed up with AccuStrike to go through and make sure we have some of the best trainers in the game. There we go, Brian Canada there. Yeah, Southern Cali. Okay, so
What's going on, brother? Brian Canada, how you doing, brother?
So we got the Minster. So let's just talk about kind of the name. So I'd say probably the longest term student that you've had. The guy who's kind of been with you since the beginning. So I'd heard Minister talk about Minister Ali for, I mean, it's been a hot minute, right? Like we're looking at coming up to 10 years. So the first night that we did, we kind of wanted to give a name that was special and kind of honor that and honor him. And so it's called the Minster. It's all kind of uppercase. It's MNSTR, right? Minster. Now there's a few reasons for that. Right? You put the vowels in, it says minister. But if you put in the right vowels, you put in different vowels, it says monster. And so we wanted to do that because depending on how you knew him and when you knew him,
Yeah.
right? He was both. Right?
Minister, I think we told him about.
He was both, right? So we kind of want to go through and honor the man's legacy, and he's no longer with us.
Yeah, that's what I was told, man. That's what he was told. He died a couple years ago.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. And I mean, if we can track him down, if he's still with us, we'll get him on, right? So the next thing that we kind of did was going through and looking at this in terms of what materials were available inside, right? So on the Minster, we went with leather scales and went with the leather sheath. And the reason for that was
Because those are materials that are easy to get upstate. There's a leather shop in most facilities, right? Or they have leather work, not necessarily a leather shop, but you had dudes that was their hustle. They would make belts and belt buckles and stuff like that out of leather. So leather was something that you could get your hands on.
right. So we went through and we did leather scales, we did a leather sheath, and I mean, everything's kind of moved towards Kydex and stuff like that, and, you know, synthetic materials, and I mean that's okay. But what I'll tell you is, holding a knife with a leather handle or a wooden handle, right, like a natural material in your hand, it's just different. Uncle Jim, like James Keating, he talks about like your grip is stronger, right? You just perform better with a natural material, and I mean whether that's true or not, it's definitely true to some, right?
Right.
So that was a big part of it. The next thing that we did is we went with Kiradashi style blade. So the reason we went for that is all these shanks and everything like that, any type of edged weapon up top, everything was going to be point driven. But the other thing that was required was all this had to be manufactured on the fly.
Yeah.
So what's a blade shape that's equal parts effective, but and fairly straightforward to manufacture? So you go through and you get one piece of steel, right? I mean, that could be, you know, it could be a ruler, it could be, you know, something you jimmied out, right? Kind of piece of aluminum frame. And so you get one piece of steel. Well, I mean, you're not just doing it for yourself, right? You're maybe doing it for someone else, right? So you get that longer piece of steel, good piece of steel, right? You want to look after your crew, look after your boys, right? So going through and making a single cut that creates that angle, that's a straight line, it's fairly easy to do. If you're not doing that, because a smaller piece of steel, it's easy to go through and create that straight, right? That shape, right? And so that was a really big part of it. And we'll get into this blade geometry in kind of a couple of minutes as to why we did it. But so that gave us something that's easy to manufacture and something that was, I mean, common for point driven tools, right? So actually we'll talk about kind of why now. So this blade shape, that angle is chosen because it's very similar to the point on a hypodermic needle. And that point is designed to go through clothing. So what's like, you wanna kind of describe the coveralls and stuff like that, and like what you guys had to wear, right?
So we wore state greens, right, which were about like khakis, right, in thickness.
Mm-hmm.
We had winter coats, but the reality is that, like, if something was going on and you knew something was going on, a dude might take up magazines, tape them around his chest, you know, tape it over his heart. Or another trick would be you take two sweatshirts, or they gave us sweatshirts too, and you could have hoodies and stuff like that. You can get them in the package. But you take two sweatshirts, take some shoestring, and stitch them together, and then put the magazines between the two shirts.
So like makeshift body armor, essentially, yeah. Right? So I mean, how effective was it? It was effective enough that guys didn't waste their time doing it, right? So like, if it didn't work, I mean, that's one of the interesting things about the 6952 is, like, no one's fucking around with nonsense. That's nonsense,
right?
Like there's plenty of ideas that were born and died, right? With a couple guys. I mean, really, right? So we go through and start looking at that. That blade profile is designed to go right through textiles, and it's designed to go through organic medium, right? And so. Some people look at it like, well, you know, I don't know how strong that blade's going to be, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it is designed for a very specific purpose, has similarities to like an 11 Bravo scalpel, right? There's a lot of things going on with that. But this point was set up for maximum penetration, and we'll actually go through at the end of this, and we'll do a stab test without the magazines and going through a National Geographic and a time stack together, just so we can kind of let you appreciate how well that worked. The other thing that we went with is a single grind, right? And so what that means, like with a chisel grind and zero grind, it goes right to the edge, right? So we basically have this type of setup that goes right to the edge. There's no secondary bevel. There's two reasons for that. One of which is, when you look at razor blades, they're typically done with that, and it's because it provides a sharper edge. right? It's also easier to manufacture because if you're going through and you're kind of working that blade, right, as that's coming down, you really just need to worry about one angle. You don't need to worry about trying to come and match it, right? You basically just create that one angle, and then, you know, the bottom of the coffee cup or whatever, you just clean up the burr on the back side, and so we can kind of get that. So why does that matter? Well, for people that haven't had to make shanks before, you again, you have to do this in a fairly clandestine way. So, you know, you find a brick somewhere that's kind of like secluded, and you'll go through and you put your work in, right? But I mean, guys are okay with their hands, but no one's a craftsman, right? You're doing this all by hand, and so a big part of that is you're probably only good, like if you're right-handed, you're probably only good at that right side where you flip it over. I mean, it's just more work, right? The other side is once you get that blade started, that angle started, it's easier to kind of maintain it. So that was important, that we were kind of with that sharper edge, easy manufacture. One of the other ways guys kind of rough blades out inside is walking along a wall and just dragging the edge, right? So just to kind of start roughing that out. So there's a bunch of ways that you can do that. You know, talk about any of the ways that guys actually get a true edge.
Well, honestly, in actually, like for example, in Adequate C block, there are windows in the cell, and when you open the window, the brick is exposed because the cells in C block are metal, but the brick on the outside is exposed. Wait till like the 11-7 tour, boom, open up your window, you can get busy right there, right? And then in the other spots, dudes might create a divot in the floor, right? Because like so. In facilities where they had stone walls in the cell, they had a paint. I don't know what the hell that paint was made out of, but they would put paint on the walls. It was hard to get off, so you couldn't make the weapons that way. But they never put paint on the floor, right? So you create a divot, a channel in the floor, and you could sharpen it up right there, right? So those was like, for myself, anyway, my primary ways, right? And I would usually wait until everybody was asleep, right? So that way you don't want the dude down the tier to know what you're doing. Right, that might be the guy, right? So you wanted to have as much privacy as possible when you was doing this.
All right, so kind of ease of doing it. I mean, if we're going through it, you're reaching outside of a window to do it, you might only be able to get one angle real nice, right? Just kind of the way that's set up. So kind of being realistic about why those things happen. The color that's on this, that pattern, so that's a forced patina. That's created by boiling that blade in Coca-Cola. And so there's a bunch of ways you can do it. Yeah, you can use vinegar, you can use, right? There's a bunch of ways to acid wash. Boiling it in Coca-Cola was used because it's a method that was clandestine, and it's something that could be done. As you, like, I mean, quite frankly, you go through and start heating up vinegar in your cell. Like, everyone's gonna know, and like your celly's probably gonna beat the fuck out of you, right? Like, you stink up the cell like that.
Well, New York primarily wasn't a double cell.
Okay.
Right? You have certain jails that were, and then in other jails, like the first 2 or 3 cells on the tier,
sure,
right? And that started like in 2005, I think, somewhere like that. Maybe 2001. Okay. But overall, they were single bunk cells.
Okay. So you don't want to stink up your own cell either.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Right? So going through and kind of looking at that. So we boiled that in Coca-Cola. Right? It kind of gives it a little bit of a different look. It gives it a really kind of a neat patina. Right? I'll just hold that up so that can get seen. Right? And so lets the grain of the steel kind of come out. The other kind of piece that we have is this type of a stop or a hook. Right? So we did a collaboration with Steel City Cutlery, Jordan over there. We did the Norwally. So with the Norwally, we added this, that tusk. And so the big reason that we wanted to do that was just kind of the ease of index, right? So as we're kind of coming up, because the reality of it is, I mean, you're not going to be drilling a hole into anything. Not in steel, right? So you're going to be able to get that hook. You're going to be able to get that kind of index, and that works really well. But the other thing that's interesting about this design is the handle is short, right? So it comes in there. Right, Shadow, you wear what, an XL glove?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I wear a large glove. I have a large woman's hand, right, versus a man's hand. But even if when you wind up drawing this, what's interesting is even if you catch it right here, right? It's not a shortcoming because it actually goes from backs the knife up between the phenar and hyperphenar, so you're not going to ride up on it. This blade shape is set up so that if you do wind up riding up on the knife, you're not going to get cut as bad, right? So that winds up working, and then, I mean, it obviously also works in that kind of reverse grip, right?
And like you said, I have big hands. And
Right.
the reverse grip, it fits me perfectly.
So got your thumb on the back, kind of cap it down, right? Have that flat portion, and then you kind of have that palm swell to really kind of fill everything in, right? And so then we start getting into the sheath. And again, we went with leather. So there's some features on this sheath that no one's done before, right? So yeah, full leather sheath, right? There's not too much detail in this. And the reason is because you really just needed something quick. And you might get one of the boys or something like that to kind of make it up for you. They're just kind of in a hurry. So there was that. What makes this interesting is not that it's leather, and it's not that it's just kind of a simple shape. It's that slot. So that slot is your attachment point. Do you have a pair of jeans? So as far as we know, this hasn't been seen in the kind of EDC or tactical community. So this is just a penny, right? Just a penny. So he's going through and sliding that in through the cloth from the inside on the pair of jeans, right? Or from the inside of the pocket on that thinner material. Then you go through and feed the penny and the cloth through that slot and then turn it around like a mushroom. All right, so now we have something like that. And that's not coming out. So if we go through and stuff that bad boy back inside, when you pull this, it comes out. Even if this comes all the way out, sheath stays attached. And that's something that, I mean, I haven't seen anyone do.
Me neither.
Right? Going through, taking it out. So that penny trick was something that was, there's a lot of firsts on this knife, and that's definitely one of them. Like I said, going back to the leather, right, the leather handles, integrating our Norwal tusk, going through using the Coca-Cola boil on a production knife. We have about 30 of these coming. And actually, what's the fellow from AccuTech or AccuStrike?
AccuStrike, Dwayne.
So, fellow from AccuStrike loves what we're doing, and we actually have AccuStrike doing the trainers for him. Really nice job, and so we're absolutely ecstatic to go through and be able to offer a trainer that's made from a company of that quality. Right? They're the same guys doing. Or same fella, they're doing
for Jeremy Hungay,
Pakiti Tactical,
Pakiti Tactical,
Fred Maestro, Master Defense, MBS,
and Kenny Bigby.
I'm not sure about him.
He's also associated with the PTTA, Navy SEAL dude, the Jiu-Jitsu, all kind of other stuff. They're making his trainers too.
Right, so he's a heavy hitter, and we're pretty jazzed to be able to kind of offer that and that level of trainer, right? Someone's pro and ready to go. And I mean, they're solid. They're a good piece, right? And these almost fit in. So we've had some adjustments made, and the trainers will fit fairly well the sheath, right? So we can kind of get into that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. We're really pumped about this. Really proud of it. Kind of get it going. We got the prison heritage in there, and then we kind of updated it, right? So this is something you would have found inside, or could have been found inside. Luckily, they weren't floating around.
Just adding to that, right? I'm gonna touch on that too, right? Like in certain jails, Attica in particular, there was a metal shop, right? And in the metal shop, dudes had grinders and stuff. And this is going back what you were saying about sharpening, right? Oh, the angle. So in the metal shop, because some of the best styles I seen when I was up top was in Attica, right? Because of the metal shop. And you could get a guy to make something like this, in that single grind because it wouldn't take a long time. You can hurry up, do that, boom, package it up, and get it out of the metal shop. However, dude was just getting stuff out of the metal shop, right? So this is definitely this is basically the knife I wish I had when I was up top, but then I'm happy I didn't have when I was up top because this would have created a whole lot of extra problems that I didn't need.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
So we're pumped about that, getting back to kind of the natural materials, going through and doing, Coca-Cola boil, integrating the Norwal tusk, right? Kind of using something that's purpose built, and that's something we really haven't seen. I can't think of a single production knife that's out there, even custom knives using Coca-Cola boil. Going through and kind of building with that story. Leather handles aside from the K-bar, I don't know who's doing them. Leather sheaths, we've kind of seen fall the wayside. That penny trick, right? As far as I've never seen anyone else do it. Right, so we're gonna go through and set up real quick. Oh yeah, and obviously having Aki Strike doing the stuff for us. So we're gonna go through and just kind of shift the camera around a couple in just over the next couple minutes here, so we can set up to get this test done. And then if you have any questions about the MNSTR, you got any questions about for Shadow 52 or 50 BTK, how you can kind of get at it, anything like that. Like I said, we'll get them. So we'll try to scroll back and make sure we can answer them. So just give us about 30 seconds here, and we'll go through and kind of angle it over. You're going to do the honors?
Yeah. Let you do it.
Okay. Are we showing up there?
Yeah.
Okay. We're there. Awesome. So we'll go through and look at just putting this in. We'll go through some clothing and stuff like that. All right. So, you like your scarf? Do you care?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. So through a scarf, we got a couple layers, loose fabric. This just kind of goes in, right? Right through. Right. I missed the scarf on that, so just going in. Right. I see that right into the other side, right? Kind of through this vest, t-shirt, stuff like that, just in, right? Like the clothing isn't even there. And so then we start going through and getting into, look at this. I'll just use this reverse grip because it's easy for the camera to see. So we have a Time magazine and we have a National Geographic. So going through, start kind of getting through one almost completely. Let's go through. Maybe I'll put a little more heat onto that. And we are in. Right? So just go through, bring this around. We're definitely in. Right? So it's better with the magazine, but it's not great. And that's with two of them. So if we go through and look at what if we do just the one magazine, or do you want to try the two first?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go through and make sure we can see that.
Good.
Yep. All right, so we're getting, up to there. Okay. So we're that far in through two magazines, right? Without any magazines going through clothing, we're easily up to the back tires on it. You just want to hang on to that. We'll just go down to one magazine. Okay, and so we'll go through and we'll put that on the body there. I'm just going to go through, make sure we're in. So one magazine, like this is a National Geographic standard. Go ahead. I mean, the only thing that stopped that was the back tires. Right? Like we're full blade penetration. And this knife is not even sharp. Right? We have not sharpened this knife. Okay, we'll set back up. I'm going to hang on to that. And then if you have any questions, let's get at them. Okay, let's go, Brian. Yeah, Brian, you're gonna love it. It's purpose built. So as far as we've seen, nobody's done magazine tests. That thing is going like on our blade unsharpened. We're getting, I mean, an inch and a half in, right? With one magazine, which was more common, we went right to the back tires on it. So does it work? An overwhelming fuck yeah, right? And as far as like just looking at clothing, like winter coats and stuff like that, I mean, me being from the Great White North, like you're wearing some type of jacket all the time, right? So going through and kind of looking at that, right? As far as does it do the thing it was designed to do? Absolutely. Do we have any questions about 52, or is everyone turned into a pumpkin? Okay. Well, thank you very much. We might do another live tomorrow and talk about some kind of things we've got upcoming for that seminar that we want to do in PA.
So yeah, if nobody has any questions, we're gonna sign off. Thank you everybody who tuned in, man. We appreciate you. Right.
And we'll go through. This will be up on Instagram. I'll download this, give it a quick edit, and then we'll upload it to YouTube. And then I'll make sure Shadow and everyone has a link. We'll toss that link up in your bio so that it's easy for people to find.
All right.
Right, so that way because it's just easier to rewatch stuff. Thanks a lot, Mo. Appreciate that. Yeah, so if you don't want to get and watch the podcast, the whole thing, you want to rewatch it, listen to it in the car, we'll have it up on YouTube. I'll kind of start doing that. Hopefully, I have it up, first thing tomorrow morning or before. So that'll be I'll have that up on the Delta 2 Alpha YouTube channel, and then I'll tag you in it. Yeah, so I'll tag you in it so that way it's easy to get. And I mean, if you can't find it, just DM one of us directly. Okay, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure, and we'll be in touch.
See you on the other side. Head on, me.
See you in PA. Hakuna Matata. That was a hoot.